180 hours to complete. Haley will be talking through the creation as well as the process it took to achieve this completed native species field guide that is now used as an educational tool to identify the vegetation around the Durango Nature Center. So we'll give it over to Haley. Thank you.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley. As Amanda just mentioned, I'll be giving a little more in-depth intro of myself. But first, before we start, I just wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the land that Fort Lewis College is situated upon and is the ancestral land and territory of the Nuchu people who were forcibly removed by the United States government. We also acknowledge that this land is connected to the communal and ceremonial spaces of the Jicarilla Apache, Pueblos of New Mexico, Hopi Sonoma, and Dene nations. It is important to acknowledge this setting because the narratives of this land in this region have long been told from the dominant perspectives without full recognition of the original land stewards who continue to inhabit and connect with this land. Thank you for your attention and respect in acknowledging this important legacy. So, who am I? Amanda did a great job explaining, but just to highlight, so I'm originally from northern New Mexico. I'm from Nambe Pueblo. I had just graduated from Fort Lewis College in the spring of 2023, so this past spring. I did get a Bachelor's of Arts in Environmental Studies and Public Health, so both of those kind of fuel my passion for the environment and, you know, us keeping it safe. So I also do love plants, so I was really excited when Amanda got to give me this opportunity to come talk to the Native Plant Society. I actually, when I first decided to come to college, I was looking into a botany degree, but Fort Lewis didn't offer that. And so I knew that I was still going to Fort Lewis, but I wanted to try something. So I tried biology and I didn't really like that. So I ended up trying some environmental studies classes and public health classes, and I instantly found my calling. And so that's kind of how I ended up in that route. I love learning and I love research. And so both of those things were kind of really big aspects of this project. I had to do a lot of research on the native vegetation that exists in this area. And I also had to do a lot of learning throughout this process because I've never created any type of book before. So that was really fun to learn and just be a part of. When I'm not doing any of those things, I am either outside skiing or hiking. I like to paddle, reading when I can, or just hanging out with some friends or doing something fun. And then, as Amanda mentioned, I am serving in a AmeriCorps position with Mountain Studies Institute. So that has been really cool to make that connection. And I don't think I'd be here today without that. So really awesome. So how did I get from there to this project? So where did this start? I started with the Environmental Center in spring of 2022. And for those of you who don't know, the Fort Lewis College Environmental Center is a student-sponsored organization. So there's 2 full-time professional staff, but all of the projects are student-led. And so we do a lot of projects from composting to media outreach to garden spaces to native campus restoration to creating this field guide, which was a really niche project actually, because they don't typically do a start and finish project. It's usually ongoing projects that they try to pick up. So yeah, we just have a lot of different sustainable initiative projects that we do, and they're all student led. And so one of the highlights of the EC is that we all get to work on something that we're interested in. And so during my hiring process, Sadie read down the list of projects, and the field guide and the native species restoration were 2 that I was really interested in because not only do I love plants, but I love bringing my creativity to it and getting my hands dirty. So I thought having both of these projects as an option to maybe participate in them was the way to go. So I did get hired, and I learned that SJMA was interested in creating this field guide during that process. And so I ended up joining both of those projects. So these are just some pictures that we took on the first semester of my EC experience. When you join as a member, you're required to do a member gathering, which is just happens every semester because of the turnover of students. But we went out to Mancus to go view this farm and do some team building and a service project. However, you can see that we're all pretty bundled up. It was really cold and we didn't actually get to do our service project. So that kind of was a bummer. But that's us just doing some team bonding, and I was getting to know what it's like to be a part of the EC while still being kind of onboarded to what type of responsibilities I'm going to have with these new projects under my belt. So planning the process. This is where I met Rachel Taylor, who couldn't be here tonight, but she works for SJMA on the education team. And she was wonderful and so helpful in the creation of this project. I don't think I could have ever done it without her. But both of us came together and realized we have no knowledge of creating a book. So we started this whole project from scratch, and we kind of just started the trial and error process, just from what we had from our own experiences. And the first thing that we started with was Rachel brought to me a really vague, just long list from the Durango Nature Center that had about 80 plus species on it. And while it was kind of overwhelming, it was still, I was up for the challenge. I was like, cool, we're going to make a field guide with all of these species and it's going to be great. And so I immediately took that list and I was like, okay, I'm going to throw this into an Excel sheet and then we're going to brainstorm from there. So the next step after we had our list of species was, what did we want to know about them? And so we needed to know what type of audience that we're trying to approach. We needed to know what type of topics that we wanted to focus on. And we also, something that I learned along the process that I didn't expect to be a barrier was the language level. When I first started researching all of these species, I was so happy to just do my little research and then come to Rachel, excited to show her all the work I did. And she was like, this is great, but it's not for our audience, because I was thinking in a college level mindset. And so that was kind of hard for me to scale that back to children's level. But it was really a great learning experience, because now I'm in the position where I do have to do that with my job all the time. And so it's really exciting that I got to kind of touch on that before I ended my college career. And then once we were going through all of these different species, we wanted to know the different types of categories of vegetation we wanted to include. And so we decided to go with trees, shrubs, flowers, cacti, grasses, and invasives. We thought that those were the top things that we wanted to see within the field guide. So we had our categories of vegetation, but we also needed an explanation as to what we're looking at with our vegetation. And so we did some brainstorming and we wanted to know, we thought that these different categories were going to be the most useful when looking and for plant ID, especially with young children, to keep them engaged. And so we wanted a description of the species, a really brief description too, just kind of like some general characteristics. We wanted to know the leaf type, because we all know that leaves are really important when it comes to identifying plants. We wanted to know the type of fruit that the plant was bearing, either if it was a flower or a catkin or a berry. We just thought that that was something important to highlight. And because of the cultural significance in this area, we thought it would be really important to highlight traditional uses as well. So I did some research in trying to find out what these different plants were used for within the cultures around this region. We also wanted to know seed dispersal and the animals that depend on this species. We thought that using the word depends was better than looking for a habitat or food, just because some animals depend on multiple things for these different plants. And then we also included a fun fact, because who doesn't love fun facts? Everyone. Yeah, so like I said, we started really ambitiously, and I had that whole list of 80 plus species, and I just started cracking away at all of those categories with all of those species. And I was really in and over my head, because I did the math and I was like, okay, if I do so and so many species a week, I'll be done by the end of the semester and we'll be ready to go next semester for this. And about 2 or 3 weeks of plugging in all that research, I was like, this is not going to work. So the next time I met with Rachel, I was like, okay, I think we need to narrow down what type of species we're actually going to include in the book. And so we went back into those those 6 categories, and we decided to use, well, we actually narrowed it down that we needed, the field guide itself was only supposed to be about 25 pages. And so I was like, whoa, I didn't know that when I started researching, and I was like, okay, there's no way we're going to put 80 plus species on 25 pages. And so we decided to divide them up into about 5 pages per category. And we roughly about 5 or 6 species per category we decided to go with, and they were the most prominent species that we saw around the nature center. So I will probably list those later because we'll be going through the field guide. Alongside, I also mentioned that I was on the campus native restoration project. So I co-led this with another project lead who had previously been working on this project since 2020, I believe. And so she's up and started this project. So it was her original idea, and I got to help just kind of assist with this and not really like lead it, but just help. And the project is creating a natural landscape that already exists in this region near Animas Hall, which is a residence hall on campus. And so you can see in the back there that that whole bed has been kind of torn up, and we're trying to repopulate it with native vegetation to attract native pollinators and hopefully just kind of restore the environment to what it once was before we put the college up on this mesa. So during my part of this, we were working, and in the colder winter months, you know, you can't really go outside and dig and plant stuff. So we were thinking of creating educational signage. That was kind of the big project that we focused on when we were doing the restoration project. So what we wanted to do was get little metal plaques for each of the native species that were in the garden, so students could be able to identify them themselves. And we were hoping to get the name, the scientific name, and little emblems that represent pollinators or a drought tolerant type of plant. So each plant was going to have its own name tag, and then we were going to have a larger sign that explains the process or the whole project, and just like what the point of this garden is and how we're trying to make it a more sustainably vegetated area. And so, you know, signs aren't free, so we needed to apply for funding, and Fort Lewis has this really awesome grant called the Sustainable Initiative Grant. And so we explained what we were trying to do and how much money we needed, and thankfully we were actually awarded the grant. And so I was not a part of the process of putting the signs in, so I'm not exactly sure if they are in, but I do know that they were ordered. So to be determined. I don't know if the project leads have picked that up, but it was just really exciting to be a part of that and kind of see how the grant writing process goes for something small like this. And just and then this picture is just all of the different species that we were looking to get signs for in the garden. And another highlight of this project is that we met Kate Grayson from Sierra Club, who also couldn't be here tonight, but she was so kind to come and help me and Nova with this project. She was really into it from the get-go. She's very like a native plant head. I don't know if any of you have met her, but she generously donated her time and her energy to be able to help us obtain plants and plant them. So we did a lot of coordinating at the end of the semester, and she helped us get a lot of native species into the ground after we had done all of that grant work. And yeah, so you can just see that that's kind of the restoration work that we've been doing. And I think that the project is still ongoing today. So hopefully the current project leads are keeping up with that, or at least working on some maintenance with that project. So back to the field guide. We successfully transplanted all of those donated species we were just talking about. And all this research was finally finalized and reviewed. So this was a screenshot of just like the final Excel sheet that we were looking at. We organized it by, okay, what information do we have for each of these species? How are like, another thing to highlight is I wanted to try and keep a lot of the websites consistent throughout the research process, because I just didn't want to pull different sources of research or different sources of information from different websites and it be incorrect. So I tried to keep it consistent. One of the most common websites that I found helpful was the Utah State University website. They had a lot of great information that had all of those categories that we were looking for. And so I prepped everything to be taken a pause for, because we were going on summer break and I wasn't going to be able to be working on this project for the summer. So we tried to make sure at least the research process was done and finalized, and then we were going to start the design process the next semester. So fall semester 2022 is when I picked this project back up, and we started the design process. And this was one of the, well, this is a final page, but it is a page that was a work in progress for a really long time. Once we first started, we knew that we needed a section for each of the different categories that we were looking for. So I made this template, and essentially it was all blank. And there was a lot of workshopping to do, but eventually this is what we came up with. We wanted to have a picture of the plant itself, and then we wanted to have a zoomed in photo of the fruit, because sometimes when you're looking at plants, you can't necessarily tell what the fruit looks like from a far away picture. And so I thought it would be helpful to like zoom in. Like if you're looking at a juniper tree, you're not going to be able to tell unless you really get up close to those juniper berries. And one of the personal touches that I wanted to add, so when we first started brainstorming, I really wanted to like try and add maybe like some personal art or something like that, or just like maybe a hand-drawn picture of the plant, but then we kind of ruled out that that might be a little hard to identify things. And so on Canva, which I'll talk about in a second, they have these awesome little foliage that kind of looks like it's almost hand-drawn. And so I was able to pull those for each of the different species and kind of tailor it to the page to give it a little more like substance and just aesthetics, essentially. So I talked about Canva. What is Canva? Canva is a graphic design tool, and it was the main tool that I used for creating this book. It was actually super user-friendly and really helpful. I recommend it to everybody. I am a Canva advocate. It was cool because I could actually like let my ideas come in, even though I didn't have the actual like resources. Canva kind of substituted a lot of my ideas with what they had to offer. So that was really awesome and helpful during the process. And then another way that I wanted to kind of make this an authentic book is I went out and actually took a lot of the pictures myself, because I knew that I didn't want to create something that I just pulled all of this information off of the internet. I wanted to have some type of like authentic touch to it. And so I went down to the nature center at the beginning of the semester and tried to take as many photos as I could of the plants that still had foliage. And I got about 14 out of 35 species that are in the book, which is pretty good for the area. There was a lot of constraints with that, like my timing and the season, and things were starting to dwindle as we started school. And so I think it could have maybe been a little bit better, but I mean, 14 is still better than nothing. So, and then the other way that I gathered the other photos was through Google Docs, because I think it was Rachel who told me, or somebody told me, that if you go onto Google Docs and you go through their image search, they will give you pictures that are not copyrighted. So you don't have any type of lawsuit or anything like that on your hands if you're like stealing pictures or something from Google. And so that was just kind of something that we were cautious of, because essentially we are creating a book and it might not be published, but it will be used. And so we just didn't want any type of problems there. So wrapping up the design process, so I used that mock template that I showed you earlier for the first of the species. Typo, that's okay. And there were some other pages too that had a little bit different template. So we had this other page that had 2 different types of vegetation on one page. So we had to kind of change the format a little bit. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but it still came out with all the information that we needed and the main points of the species. And then we also had some pages that just had pictures and the scientific name as well as the common name, just because we wanted to include other species that we didn't think needed the whole description, but still you might see those out, and so you might just want to know the name of them. Another visual thing that I incorporated into the book was we didn't want to waste pages by labeling like wildflowers, shrubs, and stuff like that. And so our workaway around that was color coding the sections. And so you can see that these 2 are color coded. Wildflowers were blue and shrubs were green. And you can see that they're labeled on the edges as like a little index to be able to find what section you're in. So in spring semester 2023 rolled around. This was the final stages of the book process. We finally had all of the template templates laid out and we had all the information inputted. One of the issues that we kind of ran into was scaling. So this is what one of the Nature Center books look like right now, and it's small. And when I was working in Canva, it was about an 8.5, a normal size piece of paper that I was working off of. So we had to figure out how to scale it without losing the quality of the content page, because we would save it and then like try to minimize it and it would just get really grainy. We did find a workaway around that. I cannot remember how we did it. I remember me and Sadie sitting at the computer for like 45 minutes, just like trying to figure out how we could do this, and like printing, running back and forth. It was a hassle, but it was worth it in the end to get the quality that we needed for the book. We also did some visual and grammatical edits, as well as just looking for consistency throughout the text. And then we did a lot of peer review before we actually printed it. So I think John over here was one of our peer reviewers who helped with the edits of this book, because we didn't want to just publish something that had any incorrect information. So yeah, we got to finally wrap that up at the end of the semester, which was really awesome. And so the finished product came to be, I don't actually remember when it finished, but I do remember how excited I was when Rachel finally gave me copies of the book. I was like, oh, it's finally done and printed. So we successfully created a versatile botany field guide that's now been used for educational purposes. And as Amanda did say in my little bio earlier, it did take over 180 hours to complete. I did go back to my timesheets and count all of those hours up. And so it was pretty hefty load of work, but I am so excited to be able to share what I created with the community and to be able to just talk to you guys about this whole field guide that I made just for the Native Plant Society. I think this is so cool. I've never been to a meeting for them. So some things that I would have done differently, I think I would have planned the research process more efficiently. I think had I not just went in and over my head with those 80 species, I think we could have gotten a lot more done a lot sooner. But you know, trial and error. I also wish I would have started with a design first as well. I think instead of making one single template, we just kept putting things in and out of that one template. And then once I finally had like the completed version, I was like, okay, now I have to like make this without the words. And so it was kind of a lot of back and forth. And so I wish we would have just been a little more consistent with the design process. And then if I was ever put in this position again, I would love to try and get 100% of the original pictures. I think it'd be really cool to have that real, just all of those real life pictures taken of healthy living plants in this area. And yeah, if I ever got the opportunity to make a book like this, I definitely would try and hop on that opportunity. So. And then some takeaways is that I just learned what the process is of creating a book. Like, I don't think that's something everyone gets to experience all that often. And so I thought it was really cool to just be a part of something that not even a lot of my peers got to do, because this project, I was the only project lead who got to work on it. And so it was really unique. And I want to call it special because this was like my project baby. And one thing I'm also excited about is that I'm really comfortable with graphic design now. I feel like I have a lot of more confidence in creating flyers and stuff like that, which comes in handy with the job I do now, and even just in everyday life. You never know when you're going to need advertisement. And then collaborating with partners, that was a big key. I am really happy that I got to work with Rachel and have this connection with SJMA, because now working for MSI, we do have a strong partnership with them. And so it's really helped just me integrate into that really nicely, because I already know these people. And so all those network connections were really awesome. I gained new different soft skills and hard skills, opened new doors and opportunities, such as this talk today. I don't think I would have ever given this talk had I not been given the opportunity to make the book and serve AmeriCorps with MSI. And so, yeah, and one of my biggest things is that great things do take time. And I would like to apply that not only just to the book, but to everything in life. I feel like over time, things just will be good. So I just want to say thank you. And I want to thank Rachel, Sadie, and John. John, for being here physically in the presence tonight. Thank you so much for all of your help with this book and just supporting the talk tonight. And then Rachel and Sadie, who aren't here, just give them a shout out that they did an amazing job helping me create this book and guiding me, because they were both mentors in this process. So yeah, thanks everybody. Any questions? Yeah.
Where did you get those hand drawings again? What you put in the background? I thought that was a really nice touch. Where you have
Yeah.
pictures in front, and then you have that. Where did you get those?
So I got them off Canva. So when they have this like section called elements, and you can search anything essentially. And so I searched the plant I was looking for, and I wanted that authentic, like drawn look. And so I kept scrolling until I found just like the right plant. So it took a little bit of time to just like really make it, because I was very tedious about choosing which plant goes with what. And I do have field guides for you guys to look at. Sorry folks online, I don't think I have a field guide to like show you. But yeah, so yeah, on Canva, I just basically searched for these little pictures until I found them, and then made sure that they were all like similarly drawn, so it looked like it was like a consistent artist essentially.
It's a nice touch.
Thanks.
Yeah, speaking of that, is there a plan to have like it's a SJMA question, PDF like online version of this document?
I don't know. Do you know, Stephanie?
No, but we would be more than.
Yeah, because I do have a PDF version
Yeah.
of the book. That would be awesome if like we could upload that somewhere. That would be really
Yeah,
fun.
there's some utility in this for like our forest monitoring crews.
Totally.
If some of their botany skills are at that level, which is good.
Yeah, I think that's like the fun part of the book, is that it's a very versatile type of book. You can use it for children, you can use it for adults. I think like the information is just enough that it's like, okay, this is a baseline knowledge of these plants, which is really cool.
At the San Juan National Forest headquarters, is where we